When I first started as a software engineer, I never imagined I'd hit the $1 million mark so quickly. I realized it was because I did something that nobody else was doing, and I will reveal this exact strategy that no one else is talking about for free, despite people telling me to charge $10,000 for it. But who am I, and why should you even care in the first place? My name is Bago. In the junior year at my university, I got my first six-figure software engineering job. Since then, after climbing the corporate ladder and working for various Fortune 500 companies, I went on to co-found a seven-figure B2B consulting firm. Today, I'm sharing the complete blueprint of my journey to $1 million as a software engineer so you can copy it and achieve it yourself. Whether you're a beginner or an expert, you'll find valuable takeaways from today's video. I've broken down my journey into three key sections: finding a job, excelling at a job, and starting a business, each filled with actionable steps and tips you can follow. Now, to make it easy for you to actually navigate, I've included timestamps both in the description and on the video itself through chapters. You can skip ahead to the parts that interest you the most and learn from there. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Welcome. Today we're going to look into finding a job specifically for software engineers. And as I mentioned before, this is sort of what I did. This is my blueprint of what I did and the results that I got, and it worked for many other people as well. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. And the first thing we're going to take a look at is the agenda really quickly. So we're going to cover essentially one of the most important things right at the beginning, which is understanding your goals, what your goals are for actually finding a job. We'll then dive into the sniper versus machine gun strategy. We'll talk about Loom outreach, email outreach. We'll talk about a personal website. We'll talk about in-person networking, DMs, and last but not least, problem and solution hacking. Some of these might seem familiar to you, while others may not, but just stick through it. You'll have chapters in the video where you can skip to each one you want to take a look at specifically, but I would recommend you on the initial watching of this video, go through everything first, and then come back and look at specific sections if you need to. But let's dive right into it. So before we start with understanding your goals, I want to talk about a bit about my journey and the way I did things. So I went from, as you know, being a regular developer, junior developer in robotics. I then went into being a research engineer at UCLA, and then I went into being a computer engineer at NASA for my internship, year-long internship. And during all these three things, I was going with the flow. You can see that each one is quite different from the other. Robotics, research engineer, and then a computer engineer at NASA. So it's not like it was one straight path. I was simply just going with the flow. I didn't really have any specific goals as to what I wanted to do or what type of internship I wanted, what type of job I wanted. I simply took the next opportunity that came up, but I didn't have any specific goals. I was pretty much moving blindly, and I just wanted to gain experience in the field. Now, once I realized that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I started to better understand my goals and exactly what it is that I wanted to do and what I can do to help me get there as soon as possible. And I knew that I wanted to start a consulting business, a B2B consulting business. And unlike a SaaS or an e-commerce company, consulting required a significant barrier to entry. It wasn't as easy as some of the other business models we'll be talking about later to actually get into them. And as you might know, I did try e-commerce to learn skills such as sales and marketing, but my main goal was always a B2B consulting firm. And to get this experience, I knew that I need to get a consulting job. And even though it was a 9-to-5 job, I saw it as a chance to get paid while learning to prepare myself for actually creating the business and running it on my own. And by my sophomore year in university, I actually started applying, and I aimed for a software engineering consulting job specifically. And by my junior year, I had already landed my contract. So I signed it, and I signed my requirements, and I signed my initial offer sophomore year, and I started junior year, January of junior year. And that was my first pretty much six-figure job that I got. And I moved up the corporate ladder for a few years, working for various Fortune 500 companies. And once I had all the tools in my arsenal, I started my own consulting business and actually separated. But there's some key takeaways regarding this entire story, and it's that you need to understand what your own goals are. What are your goals with regards to what do you want to do in the future? Because a lot of people that I see when they're trying to look for a job, they're simply just Hail Marying their jobs. They don't really know what they want. I see people applying to a front-end developer, a back-end developer, an AI developer, a machine learning ML expert, an LLM engineer. So there's one person applying to all these different types of jobs, and that really hinders your chances because what is your actual goal? What it is you want to do? What it is you want to get into? And a good way to maybe actually help you understand what your goal is to look at your strengths and weaknesses. What are you good at? What are you bad at? What do you have an overwhelming advantage in terms of maybe somebody in your network, maybe the location you're at, if you're located in LA or New York, or your experience in something, and all these other things that play a part into it. If you take a look at your strengths and weaknesses and any other advantages you have over your competitor, quote unquote, you'll be better able to actually decide on what your goal is and what you want to do and how to get there. So once you understand what your goal is, what type of job you want, now we can start actually targeting those jobs and getting the job that we want to get, quote unquote, the job of our dreams. So right off the bat, there are two ways to really land a job. The first way, and this is the way that I always preach and tell people to do, is the sniper approach. And hence, like the name suggests, you essentially have to be like a sniper. You carefully select each job you apply for. You spend time researching about the company and the role to make sure that it's a perfect fit for you. And what you really do, the key takeaway for the sniper approach is that you tailor your resume and cover letter for each application. So each application you send out is going to be a unique application that you send out. And the main goal is for you to highlight the skills and experiences most relevant to that specific job you're applying for. And in here, it's really about quality over quantity. You want to send as few, as high quality applications as you possibly can. A good example of this would be if you spend a few hours perfecting your application for one specific job at a company you really want to work for. For example, those who want to work at Fing, like Google or something, they would spend hours, maybe days actually honing their application. So it's a perfect application and they send it out once and shoot it like a sniper. Now, most people, I would say 90% of people use the machine gun approach. And this is what I preach against all the time. Do not use this. Essentially, what the machine gun approach is, you just send out as many job applications as you can. I'm sure you're familiar with the easier play on LinkedIn. I've seen way too many people do that, and I was guilty of it myself at one certain point, so I understand. But that's the last thing you want to do, because what ends up happening is you have the same exact resume that you're using for every single application, and you're just not going to get a job like that. Yeah, sure, people say it's a numbers game, but in this case, you can send out 500 to 1,000 applications, and you probably wouldn't even get one interview, especially in this job market right now. So forget the machine gun approach. Okay, we will be focusing on a sniper approach specifically because, like I said, it's worked for me and also many other people, and it actually worked for one of you guys. I got sent this email a while back, and I was really happy to see it. You actually took into consideration what I was talking about in my previous videos, and you got your first interview after close to 300 applications you had sent. And my guess is these applications were with the machine gun approach, just easy to play on LinkedIn or something. So with regards to the sniper approach, there's one key thing that really differentiates it from the machine gun approach, and that's the Loom video. Now I use Loom. This is what I'm actually recording on as well. Loom, you can see my face and the screen, because this is what I find the easiest to work with. But if you want to do maybe just a recording on your phone, or even some people can take it a step further and leave a voicemail or even call. But nevertheless, I personally recommend Loom as it's the easiest. You just get a URL, you send it to them. But what it really is, it's, as I mentioned before, it's more about the customization, but you want to personalize your outreach as much as possible and tailor it towards that specific job. So since your entire application, including your cover letter and resume, will be for that job, you want the Loom to also reflect that. Because if you can show the company that you're applying to that you're spending this much time on a job that you don't really have yet, imagine how much more commitment you will have once you actually get the job. And there's really, what I like to do is, I don't like sending a Loom that's longer than 90 seconds, so a minute 30, because you have to understand that the person on the other end, they're going through countless of other applications, maybe hundreds, if not thousands, and you just want to keep things short and concise. Remember, simple is your best friend. Keep things simple, always. And there's really 4 key points that we want to address in our Loom video. The first point is who we are. So who are you, right? Why are you applying? And the examples you'll see on the screen is actually an opportunity that's at Relly. It's a company, but this is just what it would look like. Now, don't take this word for word. I'll get into it later, but an example of who you are on the Loom would be, hi, I'm John, a software developer with a passion for e-commerce and digital advertising. So you can see that e-commerce and digital advertising was specifically tailored towards the job that I'm applying for. But if it was something else, if it had to do with AWS or it was a machine learning job, I would change it and tailor it towards that. The second thing we want to include is, why are we applying for the job? And this should only be a quick 5 to 10 second, maybe 1 or 2 sentences. An example here, I'm so excited about the opportunity. I made a Loom video to put a face to the name, as they say. This is one of my favorite lines to use, put a face to the name, as it sort of gives them the reason as to why you did it and you went out of your way. And you can talk about something that you realize with the company. So your rapid growth and commitment to supporting happiness and professional development really resonate with me. Now, this does sound a bit robotic because I did use sort of ChatGPT to write this really quickly, but that's what I'm going to tell you later on. You can use ChatGPT with ideation, but what you would do is you would change some of this up to sound less robotic and more so fit towards your personality. The reason I didn't do my specific one here is because if you guys copy it, that's not your personality, that's mine. So what you need to do is tailor it towards your personality and who you are as a person. Because once again, this is supposed to be a personalized outreach. Now, the two most important points of the Loom video are, first off, showcasing why you will be a good fit for the specific job you're applying to. Now, in this case, if I'm using myself as an example, right, I hold a bachelor's in computer engineering and I have a solid experience with Python specifically. And once again, I'm tailoring it to the job because the job was asking for Python. And in my previous projects, I've developed I talk about specifically what I've done in terms of proof that has, once again, that relates to the job description. And I even bring in specific, you can see percentages here. So I'm giving numerical, logical explanations for things. I often talk about emotional and logical, and you want to have a mix of both. We kind of did the emotional in the beginning, but now we have a logical aspect of things where we're giving a perfect numerical value, more so having it quantitative evidence of what we did and what we're capable of. And this is the most important part of the actual Loom. The last part is what I call a value bomb. And what a value bomb really is, it's an overview of a solution of a problem that you researched or you saw that the company was facing. Now, what I mean by overview, if you really want to go and take it a step further, you can make a minimum viable product. I'll get into that later. But most often than not, I would recommend having a quick overview, either on a Miro board or even on a Notion document or even on a Google Doc document of you going over a quick solution that you saw maybe on their website, or maybe they had a problem that you saw and you think you can help solve. Now, in this case, for example, since it was an e-commerce company and they wanted a software engineer specifically, I saw that they had huge volumes of orders daily and they served high-profile clients like Marvel and Lululemon. And one area I can think of computing right away is to optimize your supply chain operations. By developing a Python script to automate inventory tracking, we could reduce stock and overstock situations. In my last role, I implemented this and it led to a 20% reduction. So I justify, right? I point out the problem, I tell them I can make the solution for them, and I tell them this solution has already worked before and has gotten me these results. Now, this makes a lot of sense because previously I talked about why I would be a good fit, and I did mention that I was creating Python scripts. So you can see how everything is linked together. And you can, if you tailor this for each specific role, you can understand the actual impact it can have, especially if you hit the nail on the head with the problem that they're having. Now, keep in mind, once again, this is only an example. Do not copy it word for word. The entire point of the Loom is to showcase your personality and unique edge over other people. So you can use ChatGPT to help you with the ideation process, maybe give you an idea of what to talk about, what to specifically put. And if you have a big resume, maybe help compile it into little small things. But the longer you actually spend on this, the longer you spend on the value bomb, and just make it as good as possible, make it a killer value bomb, you can skip the interview process. And I have a friend, or I should say an acquaintance, that actually did so, and I'll use him as an example later on. You'll see how he skipped the interview process. But if you make your value bomb, which is only going to be 25 to 50 seconds, that good, think about that. You're saving hours, if not multiple days, of constant meetings and just the entire process. And it's only going to take you 25 to 50 seconds to show it, Just put in that extra hour or two into that value bomb. Now, once you have the Loom video made, it's time for you to move on to the email outreach section. More specifically, well, you're going to need to send the Loom video to them. And of course, you can do it through a DM, but we'll get into that later. But let's first talk about email, as that's going to be the most popular approach. Now, keep in mind, most people don't actually read cold emails, especially the people that you're going to be reaching out to. If they're hiring managers or C-suite executives, and if it's a smaller company, maybe you're sending it to the hiring manager or other key stakeholders like the CEO or something. But nevertheless, you need to tailor your email in such a way that it grabs their attention and makes them want to read more. Most often than not, whenever you send them an email, you always want to point out that you already did send an application, if you applied on LinkedIn or Indeed or some other application, for them to know that, oh, okay, this guy's reaching out. He's not trying to sell me something. It's not a business sending me an email. It's somebody that applied, and that's what's going to make them open the email. An example would be excited to bring my Python expertise to Redley. So they would notice, oh, okay, this guy's probably a potential hire, and he's just sending out an email. They'll probably open that. But of course, strict example, you can even do I know some applications, whenever you send in an application, you get a unique code for that. So you can even do application and paste in your unique code and then start the subject line that way. After the subject line, you want to have a personalized opening. Okay, so you can keep this as simple as possible, or you can once again play around with it, test to see what's working. But something as simple as hi and then the name of the person you're reaching out to is fine. Then you want to introduce yourself. So introduce, I'm John, a software developer with a passion, and you want to state why you're emailing them right in the introduction. So I recently applied for the on LinkedIn. Okay. And then what you want to do is offer a call to action, a CTA. So you're emailing them, but you're emailing them for a reason. You want them to get to do something. So here, what you can do is for example, I've created a short Loom video to introduce myself and explain why I'm excited about this role. I've added a personal touch to show how I can contribute to your team. And then you can paste the Loom video there. Now, we'll get into some of the etiquette with regards to actual sending out emails and stuff in the next section. But here you can even have the ask, make it bold, the ask, and then your call to action. And then last but not least, you'll close it out. Thank you for considering my application. I look forward to hearing from you. Best regards, your name and your contact info. And last but not least, you'll send out a follow-up email if you don't hear from them within a week. And you're going to keep doing this for every week you don't hear from them until you get an explicit response, either a yes or a no. And in the case you do get a no, you ask for a reason. Now, most companies in California or New York, I think they can say that they don't have to provide the reason, or they might say some BS stuff about the reason, but tell them that you're trying to improve and meet the requirement. So what is it can you do to make them reconsider you? So if you word it that way, they'll give you some feedback as to why you didn't get it. And once again, this is just strictly an example. Don't copy it word for word. The entire point of the email is to showcase your personality and unique edge, as it is with the Loom. Use ChatGPT to help you with the ideation, but it's not an end-all be-all thing. It's not an end-all be-all solution. And you can, if you're a humorous person, if you're a funny person, you can think of adding humor or something out of the box that you can incorporate that you feel like fits your personality and fits your unique edge. The goal is to showcase your edge. I've seen some people in the emails or in the Loom videos itself that have a cool background, or whenever they're sharing their screen, they have something that they made with coding, right? They have like a sick website they made or a cool animation and things like that. So really just the world's your oyster in this case. You can make it as creative as you want, but you just want to point out that you can be of value to them and you're different from everybody else. Now, this is probably the most important part of the outreach, because yeah, it's good that you're reaching out to them over Loom. It's good that you're reaching them out over email, but you need to establish credibility. You need to show the company that you're actually who you are, that you're actually worth listening to, that you're actually worth working with, and you're actually worth hiring. Because you got to keep in mind that for most companies, especially some of these FANG companies, it's extremely hard to put them in the role of you being the prize. Most often than not, people put the company itself on a pedestal. But in many cases like this, you really want to do the opposite. You want to show that you're the prize that the company is getting and that it's a steal for them to get you. One of the best ways to do that is to establish stupid amounts of credibility using a personal website. Your personal website is basically the evidence for all that is on your resume, cover letter, Loom videos, your email, and so on and so forth. And it shouldn't be an info dump, okay? It should have the following structure in the bare minimum. So keep in mind, this is the minimum that needs to be on your personal website. First of all, you need to have a home page with an elevator pitch. Elevator pitch, if you don't know what you're familiar with it, Google it. You'll find plenty of good examples. I'm not going to get into it now. Essentially short, like 60-second more so read or a short video of you just talking about yourself and pitching to the person that's coming on your website for whether you want to get hired or what it is you want to do. In this specific case, you want to get hired. So you would pitch your expertise and why you would be a good fit. Second would be your UI, your user experience. This is especially true if you're going to apply to any front-end developer positions or even full stack. You need to make sure your UI experience does not disappoint. Because if you're applying to a full stack position and your UI is literally garbage, that's a very bad sign. You want to make sure that your UI is actually good to work with, your responsiveness is very well, and the website's just perfect. Next, on the homepage, you need to have a high quality photo of yourself, okay? And this is extremely important because photo psychology plays a very big role in this. Based on the role you will be applying for, based on the jobs you will be targeting, you need to remember photo psychology. For example, if you want to showcase a professional setting, you wear professional attire. So wear clothes that are appropriate for the industry you're targeting. can be a suit and a tie, whatever the case. Remember, a smile can make you appear more friendly and approachable. Standing up straight to convey confidence and professionalism. Ensuring your photo is well lit with natural light and avoiding shadows creates a warm, inviting feeling and shows that, okay, this guy actually spent time into getting this photo. And just use a clean environment and look professional in the image. The image, think of the image as a visual representation of who you are as a person, because that's what it literally is. Your application can be amazing. Your Loom video can be amazing. Your resume can be amazing. But if they go on your website and they see that you put the bare amount of effort on your image, then that's just going to lower the standard a bit more. But if you have an exquisite photo and an exquisite landing page when they come on your website, they're going to see, oh, okay, this guy puts time not only in his application, but he also puts time, in his own life and in how he looks, how he carries himself. I know you might be thinking, what the hell does this have to do with software engineering? But trust me, guys, all these small little things make a very big difference, especially to the person actually watching and looking to hire you. Because most people, like I mentioned, they want a team player at the end of the day. If that person isn't going to be able to get along with other people, they're not going to hire them. Next, you want to have an About Me section. So what I would recommend generally is having a biography, your goals and aspirations, and you can include like a personal touch section, whether you want to include your hobbies, interests, or whatever the case you want to put on. I've seen some people even put video games that they've created, and you can go on the web and on the personal website and play a couple of the video games. You then want to have a resume and your cover letter, and you want to have them in downloadable PDFs, and you want to have key highlights, so quick little summaries for each. Now, one of the most important sections, you want to have a portfolio. So this should include all your this will include all your personal projects that you've done personally, all your school projects. If you actually went to university to get a degree, you can include all your school projects and any case studies that you've had. Case studies has to do specifically with if you worked in a professional environment beforehand, so from an internship or something, or if you had an actual job beforehand and you're looking to maybe get a better job or something. But nevertheless, you want to make sure that you have that in your portfolio. Now, this blog section, I've seen it work. I would honestly say it's optional, but if you do have value bombs, as I mentioned before on the Loom video, you're going to make a lot of value bombs. If you have MVPs of those value bombs, I would highly recommend creating a blog section and talking about the problem and solution value bombs and putting them on there for very different industries. It's not really going to take you too much time to create an MVP, a couple of weeks maybe for each one. But if you have 5 good value bombs there, that's going to set you miles apart from everybody else. And last but not least, you want to have a simple contact page with any links if you have any other social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever the case, and actual forms with regards to if somebody needs to reach out to you, whether it's for contacting you or asking you a question or whatever the case. And keep the personal website updated. This is extremely important. Use a professional design that actually reflects your personal brand, so how you want to carry yourself, and make sure your website actually does that for you. And also make sure that it is mobile responsive as well. This is especially true, once again, if you're going to be working as a full stack developer, especially in a front end section, you want to make sure it's mobile responsive as well. Now let's move on to in-person networking. We kind of talked about the online side of things, of how to get a job, okay? We choose a goal, we lock into what we want to get to, and then we just do our best using a sniper approach to get that job. But in terms of what do we do when we're in person, I want you to pay careful attention to this section, because this section will probably give you the most value out of everything we've talked about thus far. And I'm gonna do a very personal approach on this, because this is exactly what I do and what I strictly believe in. And this really is just extremely beneficial if you can actually ingest this and understand everything that I'm talking about. So first and foremost, always, and I mean always, have a business card on you. Keep it in your wallet if you have one. And the main reason is you do not want to get caught empty-handed when you are at campus recruitment, job fairs, or when you're simply outside and happen to meet an important individual. I'll talk about a very important story later on why this matters a lot. But when I mean a business card, I don't necessarily mean you need to have a business per se. You can simply make a personal card with your first and last names on the front, and then on the back your contact information with a QR code to your personal website. That's what I had done initially. Anytime you meet somebody who can potentially increase your chances of landing your dream job, you need to properly introduce yourself and grab the opportunity by the balls, as they say in the US. The reason this is so important is because these opportunities that exist, you need to be essentially perspicacious enough to actually grab them and understand the position you are in. Nobody's going to come and give you something. You're going to need to do it by yourself. To sort of give you an example here, there's an acquaintance of mine who is currently working at Tesla in the Bay Area, and they are making close to $500,000 at Tesla. And the way they landed that job, they were literally working at a movie theater, and there was a situation where a customer was complaining, and they handled the complaint of the customer really well. And a bystander happened to see that, approached them and said, "I liked how you handled that situation." And the guy, the acquaintance I'm talking about, he had an actual business card on him, like that he handed to the guy and said, "Oh, thank you so much." And the guy said, "Wow, I didn't even expect for you to have such a business card. You're working at a movie theater." And he said, "Look, I would want you on my team at Tesla. We would really use a guy like you." And he hired a guy. And this was before Tesla exploded. This was around like 2017, 2018. But right now he's doing extremely well just because of that one situation where he was ready for it. And, he took advantage of the opportunity. Now, in case of job fairs and campus recruitment, you need to have copies of your resume and cover letters ready. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with this already if you've seen them, but this is where things kind of differ. This is where my approach comes in. Anytime you happen across a hiring manager, introduce yourself properly and hand them your resume and cover letter and your business card. And what you want to do is ask them if they are a local or not. So let's say you are in, I don't know, San Diego, and there's a campus recruitment happening there. You want to ask the people that come in, the recruiters essentially, if they're local or not. If they're not, ask them if you can show them the best coffee spot in town. You can do this either before the next session, the next day of, or later on the day of that same day, whenever works really. It's just, you got to make sure that they have time, their schedule's open, and just you fit that time in. Now, the reason I say coffee here is because that's what I found the most commonality between everybody. Most people will probably, there's some people that will prefer tea, some people that will prefer a light snack or something, but nevertheless, coffee is one of the easier ones, and you can be sure that most everybody drinks it. And you want to keep the meeting to a 15 to 20 minutes, and you need to use that time to build a relationship with that specific recruiter. If they are a local, so if they're, if they're actually local and they're not from out of the country or out of the state, you can't necessarily, show them the best coffee spot in town, but you can definitely think of something unique that you can introduce to them that maybe they haven't experienced. So maybe think of your favorite pastry location, maybe you have a cool hip coffee place that or a tea place. And once again, you want to keep it to a 15 to 20 minute long meeting, and you want to use that time to build a relationship with the specific recruiter. It's extremely important here that you pay for them. And because you're the one inviting them, you want to cover the tab. And if they try to pay, you do not concede. Don't ever concede that position, and go out of your way to pay for them. And the reason that this section is so important and why I'm really stressing this idea of meeting them in person and building a rapport like that is because it's extremely underrated, and pretty much nobody's doing this. And you can truly crush your competition if you have this portion figured out. And keep in mind, I use the coffee spot as that's something most individuals tend to drink, but based on your location and culture, you can adjust accordingly, right? But the important part here is to have a one-on-one meeting with the individual and give them value, right? Preferably an experience that they have not yet experienced. So such as a cool spot in town, showing them a new place, introducing them to something, just giving them some sort of value where they feel indebted to you, right? And the best way to do this is another extremely important point. Based on where you live, you need at the bare minimum one cafe where you are a regular at. So this is where you are respected and get preferential treatment. You tip properly, you act respectfully, and you befriend the crew. And also one restaurant where you are a regular, quote unquote, where you are respected and get preferential treatment. Once again, you tip properly, you act respectfully, and you befriend the crew. That's how you become a regular at these places. But this is extremely important for you to have in your back pocket, sort of. A good cafe and a good restaurant that you frequent, and it's actually a good place. The reason it's so important is because anytime you're having a one-on-one with these recruiters or just anybody else later on in life, and they see how much you're respected in a certain venue, that will automatically put you in a higher frame, because they'll see that, oh, okay, this person, we went to a random venue, but look, the crew is treating them perfectly. They're giving preferential treatment. There's all these other people, but he's still being treated the best. And what this does is it raises your status a bit, and it shows the person opposite of you that, okay, this guy, there's credibility to his name. I know we're diving a bit further away, and you might be thinking, okay, what does this have to do with software engineering? But I'm telling you, it's these little things that nobody talks about that is extremely important with regards to getting a job, especially in the software engineering field, where now you have Every single pretty much job opening gets over 1,000 applications being sent. Many from India, many from China, many from US, and many other places. Every little thing you can do to differentiate yourself, you're pretty much set. Now, we did mention, I did mention regarding DMs. You can send, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter DMs, and don't be afraid to reach out to folks via DM. It's very natural, especially if you're going to be talking to a university alumni, a previous hire, or even a CEO or C-suite executive for a small startup. You can always shoot them a DM on LinkedIn, especially. And just remember the information we discussed for the Looms and the email outreach, and just apply the same concept to the DM. You can use ChatGPT for ideation if need be. For example, you can tell ChatGPT to summarize the Loom or the email outreach and convert it into a DM, and that can help you with being able to send out DMs for specific people. But you're doing all of this to showcase your unique edge and why you belong in that position, why you would be the best fit in that position. So any little thing you can do, it actually stands out. People pay attention to that. Now, saving the best for last, as I always say, we'll take a look at problem/solution hacking. If you remember, we went over the value bomb for the Looms, and this concept of problem solution hacking is the most ROI task you will be doing. And it's simply crazy. So if you're targeting a specific industry, which you will be, because as we talked about understanding your goals, you'll most likely want a specific type of job or in a specific industry. And you'll notice that these specific types of industries and these specific type of jobs, they're usually trying to fix a very common problem. There could be more than one, some have multiple, but nevertheless, these are relatively common with regards to that specific industry. And what your goal will be is to tailor your personal projects towards actually fixing these problems. And you can either choose, there's really two ways to go about this. You can choose to create an MVP, a minimum viable product, on a job to job basis. So for each specific job that you're applying to, you create an MVP from scratch. Or what you can do is spend a lot more time and focus on creating one actual standardized solution for one of the problems of your choosing. Now, an interesting story, an acquaintance of mine actually made a software for hospitals to manage appointments. He wanted to get into the health industry as a software engineer, and his sister was a nurse at one of the hospitals, and they were having trouble with actual managing appointments. But essentially, the staff would spend hours actually scheduling and handling these changes with regards to patients. But his system actually used AI to pick the best times for the appointments, send reminders to the patients automatically, and even update it automatically if they had any no-shows or any cancels or any other requests like that. But this made scheduling much faster and reduced missed appointments, helping both the staff and the patients because the staff no longer needed to spend any time on this. This was all being done by AI. And he initially just did this as a personal project to not only get into the health industry as a software engineer, but to also, quote unquote, help his sister in a way. But he ended up actually skipping the entire interview process because of this problem solution hack, this value bomb that he included. And he instantly got hired and even sold his software to the company that he was hired for, so the hospital that he was hired for $50,000. So literally a win-win situation. And the main goal, the main takeaway from this is that you should always think of creating. Remember, you are a creator, creating solutions to technical and non-technical problems. And the more you create, the more familiar you will become with the process of actually creating, and you'll be able to pick up on specific problems, whether they're minor or major, but you'll be able to pick up on specific problems and have really unique solutions that you can create on the spot and guess what? Use a value bomb for. It's really here, just the two choices. You either choose creating MVP for multiple on a job-to-job basis or spending a lot more time, maybe something you're pretty passionate about, and creating a solution for that. And with that, let's move on to the next section. Welcome, folks. This section is going to be about once you actually land the job. So this is for those who are actually on the job now. They currently have a job, and really the blueprint to success with regards to you moving up the corporate ladder, being in better positions, and positioning yourself such that when you do finally leave the job, exit the position, you'll actually be able to get some of your first clients from either directly the clients of the company, or you can use your coworkers or maybe even just boss and managers and other things to your advantage. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. We're going to be talking about specifically promotions and negotiations, etiquette, so business etiquette and professional etiquette, how to act once you're on the job, climbing the corporate ladder, and building relationships and actually leaving the company. So when it comes to etiquette, I keep emphasizing it. Soft skills will make or break your career success. And yes, technical skills are extremely important. They are a baseline, but that's just it. They're a baseline. They're a prerequisite. Everything else is reliant on your soft skills. So there's going to be a couple things that I'm going to be taking a look at here, and what I would say the 80-20 rule applies here. So if you do these things, they'll give you 80% of the result on the job. And some of them might be very simple stuff, some of them might be a little bit more thought out, but nevertheless, if you do all the things that I'm talking about here in this etiquette slide, not only will your clients love and respect you, but the coworkers will love and respect you, and everybody that's working with you will love and respect you. So without further ado, let's get right into the business etiquette, or I should say the corporate etiquette on how to handle things and what I personally used during my time when I was working. So for any inbound email or message or DM or anything that I got and I saw it, right, I would always send a confirming receipt email for acknowledgement. Because the point is, you never want to leave an email or a DM on read, okay? You always want to acknowledge it, always. Some people, they know they're not going to get an answer instantly, but at least if you can send them an email back saying, hey, confirming receipt, it's acknowledged, they'll be more than happy. An example here, I got asked for a few documents and I said, thank you for the email, confirming receipt. I will get these documents alongside the completed table back to you ASAP. Okay? I didn't send the documents in this email. I could have waited until maybe the next week or the next few days to send them the document along with the table. But instead, what I did is right after I got their email, I sent another email saying confirming receipt. I'll get these documents listed on the completed table to you as soon as possible. Okay? You just want to let them know that, okay, he saw it, he's gonna take care of it. For all your outbound emails, so anything that you're sending to other people, especially if you're sending it with the purposes of asking for something, always utilize the ask method. And what this does is it simplifies your request and communicates it in the most efficient and quick way as possible. And when I mean the ask method, it's literally you put in the ask bolded with a colon and then the ask that you want. For example, this was right after changes were made to production, and I sent out an email saying, please test all the changes in the PRD environment, which is the production environment, to make sure everything came over properly. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. So once again, I could have sent a very long, drawn out email, but all they have to do the second they open my email, they see a part that's bolded and it says the ask, they read, please test all the changes. Okay, perfect, I got it. But go send it, this is what he's asking for, got it, perfect. And that as simple as that, okay? Keep things very simple. Remember, simplicity is your best friend. Now, when it comes to meeting etiquette, whether you're going to be in person or on Zoom or whatever the case, if you're on Zoom or you're on Teams or you're meeting online, you need to read the room. If the cameras are on, make sure yours is also on and you look presentable. This is extremely important. Clean up your room and your background and make sure you are well groomed, okay? If you're leading a call and it's an external call, meaning it's with a client or somebody else outside of the company, ask the audience if they prefer cameras on or off while yours is on initially, okay? If you're leading a call and it's an internal call, I would highly recommend you set the standard that everybody must have their cameras on and they should be well groomed with a good background. Sure, this might be annoying for a few people, but this sets that professional standard that you really want to have. If you're not leading a call, you can play it by ear. If everybody has their camera on, have your camera on. If everybody has their camera off, you can feel free to have it off, or if you want to have it on, you can have it on. It doesn't really matter. Now, that's with regards to camera stuff. When it comes to once the actual meeting ends, what you need to do is you need to summarize the key takeaways from that meeting. And you need to send it to all the respondents on the meeting itself. There's two ways you can play this out. You can send the quote-unquote action items of the actual meeting to maybe the external team, and you can send out the key takeaways to the internal team. So that your own company, you can send out action items and key takeaways, and then for the client maybe that you're working with or whoever it is that you're working with, you can send out the key action items that you discussed. But nevertheless, what you really want to do is, however long the meeting was, 30 minutes, 1 hour, hour and a half, you want to summarize it into 5 to 10 sentences at the end of each meeting to make everybody understand that, okay, this is what we have to do, this is what we discussed. And it's really just for somebody that maybe didn't make the meeting, somebody that joined halfway through, somebody that didn't listen, somebody that got distracted. It's a very good summary for them to be able to understand, okay, this is what we discussed. They don't have to go back to the recording and watch the entire 1 hour long thing again. Next thing, don't forget the body language, okay? Whenever you're presenting or whenever you're on the camera, don't look away or look distracted. It's just gonna kill the professional mood, okay? And another thing, anytime a meeting concludes, you want to follow up after significant meetings to confirm the next steps. For example, if you have a meeting where you're going to be discussing requirements, so it's a recurrent gathering meeting, and let's say you sent out the key takeaways, what you want to do is most often than not, you want to include it maybe in that key takeaway section or maybe another separate email or text that you're following up to confirm the next steps. Hey, this is what we discussed that we needed to do by this deadline. Let's set up a meeting, let's say on that deadline, or let's set up a meeting now and get everything sorted. And whenever you're in these meetings, or even outside of whether it's verbal or oral communication, you want to have a very specific tone and language that you will be using. Always use a professional tone and language in both your emails and meetings. You want to avoid slang and any casual expressions, okay, especially if you're in a professional environment. Always be clear and concise in your communication. Avoid long, rambling messages. Remember, less is more. Keep it simple. Now, another thing that doesn't get talked about nearly as often, and this literally what was one of the main reasons why I got promoted so quickly, was punctuality. Show up to all your meetings minimum 1 minute to 3 minutes early. Every single meeting. If it's at 2 o'clock, show up at, let's say, 1:57. Okay, show up 1 to 3 minutes early to all the meetings and come prepared. Make sure if you need to screen share or present something, you are actually ready to. Now, this is another bonus when it comes to etiquette, but you want to be accessible. So anytime you get sent an email, anytime you get sent a request, the sooner you respond, the sooner you acknowledge that specific email or DM, that's going to give them the idea that, oh, okay, I can rely on this guy. I can trust this guy. He's accessible. I don't need to wait 8 hours or 10 hours to get a response back. Doesn't matter what time of the day I message him, he's accessible. It makes you seem like Superman. For example, in my consulting days, I would pretty much always have my phone on me, and anytime I got an email or a text, it would only take me really 3 to 5 minutes to maybe send out a response back. And it doesn't matter what time it was, I would send out a response back instantly. And people thought I was a magician. I could always, just sending out a response back instantly. And that feeling of you being Superman for them, that is extremely important. We'll get into it later, but having that level of aura around you really takes you very far. And another thing I really like saying is do not leave today's work for tomorrow. So anytime you need to do something today, even though you can set it out to do maybe tomorrow, complete tomorrow, just finish it today. Don't leave it for tomorrow. Now, with that, let's talk about promotions and negotiations. Because if you do everything we talked about in the previous slide, if you have that business etiquette, that professional etiquette, and you've been incorporating that for maybe months, you will be at a point where you can ask for a promotion or you can negotiate your salary or bonuses or whatever the case. And this is going to be both true for your initial, once you're applying for your first job, your initial salary, or the consequential promotions you're going to have to go through. But in order for us to talk about it, there's a few fundamental rules we must understand before we move forward. There's really two things we got to take a look at. First of all, you need to understand that your pay is directly correlated to the value you provide, not how hard you work, okay? So think of value per second versus seconds of value. And you will never be paid more than the value you provide. So this means that the second you are not profitable for the company, you will be let go, you will be fired. Once we know that, we know these things before we move forward. But now, the things we need to do actually. So we need to know that, but now what do we need to do before we ask for a promotion or go into a negotiation aspect? First and foremost, we need to know our market value. Similar to how cars, watches, and houses, and pretty much everything else has a market value, so do we as an employee. Because you need to understand that as an employee, all you really are is you're just a multiplier. People put in money into you, so your salary, and then you get them an output back. If it's like 1.1x, 1.2x, whatever the case, matters on the industry. But you can use Glassdoor, Levels.fyi, and other just industry reports to understand the typical salary range for your role. And what I would recommend doing is talking to colleagues and any alumni or previous hires to understand their compensation packages and to see the upper limit, so the benchmark of that specific position. And what you want to do is any significant achievement, you want to document it. So keep a detailed record of all accomplishments that you've made, including specific projects and specific metrics, and even the value. So for example, the money you added to the company, you helped generate for the company. So you can think of this as revenue generated, cost saved, etc., etc. For example, if let's say you're working for most agile sprints, most software engineers are being billed on an hourly basis. And most often than not, if you do things in a faster amount of time, or if you do things in, shorter amount of time, you will, in hindsight, save the company a lot more money. But some people might think this as, oh, why would I ever do that? I'm just sacrificing the money for myself. I get rewarded with more work if I might finish my work sooner. Yes, but you can keep a track of that. This is what I mean. So most people don't realize. Keep track of that. Compared to the average person in your company that's doing it, if you're doing it maybe 2 or 3 times faster than them, tell them, hey, I just saved you, let's say, how much are you paying me? $60 an hour or something? I paid you this, I saved you this much money. And later on, when you ask for promotion or negotiation, you can bring that up. And if they say no, guess what? You're out of there. And another thing, time all your promotions slash negotiations, whatever you're gonna do, around performance reviews, successful project completion dates, and positive company financial results. Timing is extremely important here. You want to make sure your manager or the person you're going to be asking for the promotion or the raise is, guess what, in a good mood. Okay, and you need to prepare a case for why you deserve the said raise or promotion. And a good way of doing this is think back to documenting your achievements and start thinking about any potential objections or questions your manager might have, and prepare the responses for that. Now, this is my favorite point, and this is the most, once again, the most ROI task you'll be doing in this section, and it's that talking with your manager and constantly, every single week, asking them what you need to do to go from point A to point B. For example, if you're a junior developer, you want to get to a senior position, you need to ask, how do I go from junior? How do I get to senior developer? And you need to keep a track of this on a weekly basis, and you need to tell them to go as detailed as possible. You need these certifications. Okay, done, checked off. Oh, what else do I need to do? You need to get this much experience. Okay, done, checked off. What else do I need to do? So you want to make sure that you're pestering your manager every single week, and you're showing that you're improving at an extremely fast rate. Once you've met all these check marks and it's now time for you to actually go in and ask for the promotion and negotiation, use the etiquette we discussed beforehand for your advantage and present your case with confidence. And remember, you always need to have the energy that should you not get paid what you are worth, because in this specific case, you know your market value, you will leave. And that's exactly what you should do. If you get denied a promotion and you yourself weren't lying to yourself and you truly believe you were not treated fairly in this case, you did not get what your market value is, you did not get what you deserve, then leave the company. Because as we talked about beforehand, if you just do the steps I talked about, the sniper approach in finding a job, you'll have a very easy time doing so. Now, this is an interesting one, climbing the corporate ladder. So first and foremost, for those of you that are in the USA, this is mainly for you. Promotions are not based on merit, especially in the United States of America. And no, I'm not talking about the DEI. Sure, that plays a role into it, but not even to that extent. While technical skills are essential for software engineers, they will only get you so far. So to reach the C-suite or higher, being liked and respected is a lot more important. Without them, your progress will be significantly slower and you never get there. This is the same reason that you'll see for many of these tech companies, you'll see people in their 50s and 60s even with 40 years, 50 years of software engineering experience that are in senior positions, but they have people 20 years younger than them, 30 years younger than them in even higher positions, whether they're C-suite executives or they're those guys as managers, directors, and so on and so forth. Even though those other people are more technically adept and have been with the company for a longer amount of time, they've only focused on their technical side and they don't have the business acumen and the soft skills necessary to back up a higher position in a sense. Because first of all, as I mentioned before, it's not really merit based. Sure, it'll take you a little bit. You can go from maybe a junior to a senior position, but you'll never enter the C-suite side or higher on just merit alone. You'll need to be liked, you'll need to be respected, you'll need to have soft skills to back that up. The corporate world is like a shark tank. It's pretty ruthless, and you need to be able to play their game, okay? Because at the end of the day, as they say, don't hate the player, hate the game. The best way you can climb the corporate ladder is what I call the effortless value providing method, okay? The more you can increase your value per second, the faster you'll climb the corporate ladder. And what does this actually mean? Well, by high value per second, your contributions should be impactful and efficient. The real key thing here is you want to make everybody's life around you as easy as possible. Whenever they're with you, you want all the meetings to be short and concise. You take as few minutes as needed for any meeting you create. You communicate clearly. Your emails and messages are straightforward and easy to understand. You always document your work. There's proper documentation. It's everything's accessible, and you have backups of all your code and things you work on, and you have a supportive attitude. You help colleagues with the tasks and challenges, and this is especially true for managers and upper management. By consistently making everybody's life easier, you increase your likability and perceived value, paving the way for rapid advancement. To do this properly, you need to level up your soft skills. And I cannot stress this enough. Guys, you want to place yourself in a position where if you decide to leave one day, your company will try to convince you to stay because they'll be like, no, if this guy quits, like I'm not gonna have as easy of a time anymore. Because what you're doing is you're making everybody's life so easy and comfortable that they're kind of being reliant on you. They're relying on you to be that cornerstone. They're relying on you to be that information broker. They're relying on you to be that guy. And whenever you say, okay, I'm leaving, they're gonna try to keep you because they'll be like if this guy quits, my life's going to be hell. Like I'm going to have to go into longer meetings. They're not going to be able to communicate properly. And this has pretty much always been the case in my personal work experience when I was working back in the day. It was that I made sure to make everybody's life around me as easy as possible. Would I sometimes need to work a little longer? Sure. Maybe I needed to work a little longer. Maybe I needed to reply to an extra email. Maybe I needed to wake up a little bit earlier to hop on a meeting or something. Maybe I needed to cover for somebody else. But at the end of the day, that made me a lot more likable towards everybody else. And because they did not want to lose me, they started giving me promotions every 8 to 9 months and just increased my pay, increased my bonus, and just they wanted to make sure that I stayed with the company. And even when, let's say, you want to quit, they'll always come back to you with a counter offer to tell you, no, please stay. Like, that's who you want to be. You want to be an asset to the company where they don't want to lose you. Okay? And once you can make that happen, you're pretty much just guaranteed to climb the corporate ladder. Finally, when the time comes that you do finally decide to leave the company and go on your own route, go into the entrepreneurship route, you need to understand that how you leave can actually affect your future opportunities and relationships. And strong relationships in this industry are crucial for long-term success because you want to make sure that you leave on good terms. Avoid burning bridges and avoid any fights, avoid any miscommunication, avoid any just sour situations. Your colleagues and your supervisors especially will become very valuable contacts in the future. You want to maintain relationships with pretty much all upper management and any of the business clients that you work with. So the company you're working for will have clients. You want to maintain a relationship with those clients as well if you can. And this is extremely important because should you decide to open a business later on, you now have a multi-million-dollar company that is already accustomed to the work you do and they trust you because you worked with them beforehand. So never burn bridges. Always reach out back to your colleagues, leave things on a good note, tell them how much they helped you, tell them how good it was working at the company. Always have them in your back pocket such that should something come up in later on, you can ask for a favor because you put in so much in that basket. It's the reciprocity rule. They have to do something back for you as well. So just keep everything on good terms, provide value, and whenever you're leaving the company, should the time come where you need to get your first client, you need something specific, you need some help, you have people to lean on, you have a network to utilize. And that's pretty much it when it comes to on the job section, the blueprint to success on the job and how to climb the corporate ladder. With that, let's move on to the next section. Thank you. And this is my blueprint for ultimate business success. Now, before we get into it, as always, let's take a look at the agenda to understand what we're going to be discussing. And first and foremost, as always, we first want to start off by understanding our whys. Why do we want to make a business in the first place? And this is important. Don't skip this section because most people have the wrong idea of what a business actually is. Second, we'll take a look at market research, how to do market research, how to choose your niche, and then we'll dive into choosing your actual vehicle, so the business model. We'll then get into how to get your very first paying client. We'll then dive into marketing and sales fundamentals. And last but not least, we'll talk about product development. Now, the reason why we want to discuss understanding our whys is because starting a business and becoming an entrepreneur is a lot more than just making money, okay? It's about achieving true freedom. In today's world, entrepreneurship is the only path to true freedom because many of us have been conditioned to sacrifice at least one of the four freedoms for success. Either time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom, or mind freedom, okay? And the business ensures that you don't have to sacrifice any of these freedoms in the long term. And this is why you need to understand your whys, why you're doing this. Not only are you doing it for the money, but most importantly, you're doing it for your four freedoms, okay? Different people are going to have different motivations, but nevertheless, once you realize that in order to find these four freedoms, you have to succeed. there's failure is no longer an option, right? And most people don't really understand what a business is. But if we were to define a business is simply an offering of a solution to a specific problem at scale. That's the key point, at scale. And you do this by taking on more risk than the average person for a bigger potential reward. With that out of the way, let's dive right into the market research. So, as a software engineer, market research is quite interesting when we want to start a business because our tech industry knowledge is actually a big advantage. But while it's a big advantage, it's also our biggest weakness. We need to take a look beyond just the technical aspects that we see. I mentioned how most people like to think that, oh, if I'm a software engineer, I can only make an app or a SaaS, or I have to go to Silicon Valley and do a startup. That's not necessarily true. While, yes, our tech industry knowledge is a big advantage, it can also hold us back in some specific cases. What we need to do is we need to explore different industries because different industries can bring new opportunities. We need to take a look at both technical and non-technical areas to find where our skills will give us the biggest advantage. And it's key that we decide to choose a market that can actually grow and last. If we choose, for example, a printing market, right, newspapers and such, we're going to have a pretty bad time. So one of the best ways to do so, one of the best ways we can actually research the market is if we pay careful attention to the problems that we, as software engineers, face, any problems that our family faces, and any problems that our friends face. These can inspire new ideas, and if we do this on a day-to-day basis, everyday challenges can actually lead to useful and impactful solutions that we can come up with, as discussed previously. Furthermore, for many of you, your personal passions and interests can even ignite a specific motivation or a creative thing in creating your actual business, right? I've seen beforehand many people who got into the gaming space, it most often started from a passion and interest in gaming, hence why they went down that route. But what's really important is you need to be observant in your daily life to help with market research. Sure, you can conduct surveys, you can do interviews, you can use online tools to go look at insights. But at the end of the day, when doing market research, it's all about what the customer needs. And one of the best ways of doing that is taking a look at your own life and seeing what you need, what you're consuming, what your parents are consuming, what your family is consuming, what your friends are consuming. So all the solutions that they're consuming for their problems, figure out why and what that is. And actually setting clear goals will help you find specific markets that you can tap into and specific markets that can stand out to test of time and grow as time goes on. There's various tools you can use to understand market size, demand, and competition, such as, for example, you can use Google, I believe it was Insight, you can use Google Insight, you can use Google Search with regards to finding trends, Google Trends. You can use even specifically YouTube as an example of what's being popular right now, what's being talked about. And you can network and even seek mentorship to actually see in your specific industry that you maybe want to get into, what you can do there. But connecting with industry experts, attending events, and just joining forums can give you valuable insights you can do for market research. There's really so many ways you can do market research that it's just quite simply just becomes complicated, right? And last but not least, you want to understand the regulatory requirements and legal issues, especially if some of you I know are from different countries. I know things for the US. I don't tend to know how the rules are in other countries, but you want to be aware of those in case you do decide to finally start something. You're aware of what you need to do and how to do things. When it comes to market research, really the main point is to focus on a growing and innovating space that will play things towards the long term. Don't look at things on a short term, look at things on a long term enough horizon, so 10 to 15 years at the bare minimum. Once we're past the market research phase, we can talk about choosing our vehicle. So when assessing any specific business model, when taking into consideration any specific business model, we need to understand that based on the business model, we will be limited to how much we can grow. So especially today in 2024, certain business models are a lot more profitable and viable than others. So there's a lot of outdated business models nowadays. And you can see like many traditional models are becoming obsolete. So you need to stay informed about the current trends, and it's extremely important for you to avoid declining industries. We talked about the printing and newspaper industry, right? So what you want to do here is define the vision for your business clearly and make sure that your business model can support your long-term goals. Set your financial goals early on when you start. For example, if you want to make $1 to $3 million a year, choose a business that aligns with these objectives. And initially, when you're starting off, you want to avoid models with limited growth potential. So brick and mortar retail, which has very high costs and limited scalability. Traditional service-based businesses, they're limited by the number of clients and everything is on an hourly basis. And low margin products, because those require high volume to be profitable. Instead, you want to consider business models that are higher in scalability and growth potential. For example, e-com, SaaS, right, digital products, online courses, content, tech consulting, freelancing like that. Custom software development is really huge nowadays, and so many other things. But keep things in line with what's happening nowadays rather than looking at what worked beforehand. And the main point here is if you stay updated on emerging trends and innovative business models, you'll be able to adapt and pivot as things change. And as you need to become more and more competitive, you'll be able to adapt and stay relevant in these spaces. So focus on scalability and automation by choosing models that allow for these features. Use technology to actually streamline operations and maximize efficiency. And by following these steps, you can create a business that grows and thrives in today's market. Now, based on the vehicle you choose, you're gonna need your first paying client. This is probably the most important section of this video because many of you have no problem with choosing the business model. Many of you have no problem with deciding what business to do. As I mentioned, all you really need to do, it's not complicated. You just think about, okay, what do I want from life? What do I want? Where do I want to be in 10 to 15 years? Okay, this business model will help me get there. I'm good at this and this and this. Okay, I can go ahead and do this. Where most people fail is how do I get my first client? Well, your first paying client is the most important one. They not only validate your business model, but for the first time, you get paid for the full value you provide. Whereas before you were working a 9 to 5, you didn't get paid the full value. Now you're getting paid for the full value you provide. And getting your first client is often the biggest hurdle business owners face. And what I'm going to be talking about is the blueprint to how I got my first few clients. So let's start off with the most ROI one that I did, which was in person. So when I first started my consulting firm, I literally put on a suit and a tie, and I went to local businesses that I thought would be a great fit for my offer. I researched the business ahead of time, and I had a solution ready to present for what I can do for them. I literally knocked on the doors, entered the store, asked for the owner. If the owner wasn't there, I left my business card with them. If the owner was there, I would talk to them, pitch them what I could do for them, and start from there. The second thing is I leveraged my network. So I leveraged pretty much my entire network. Any acquaintances I had, any friends I had, family, friends, close friends, co-workers, managers, clients I worked with when I was working 9 to 5. Nevertheless, anybody that I could get my hands on, I did so. And I found specifically 3 people that were interested in my work. I did work for 2 of them for free initially. So my very first job I did free for them. And that later turned into actual paid work. And even to this day, they're still my clients. So that just goes to show how powerful this really is. The third thing that I did is masterminds. So I utilized the same exact business card tactic I did for finding a job. I used it for finding a client now. And the only difference is I went to various masterminds and seminars and presented myself. So a couple of years ago, I went to the Vault conference in Miami, and I got 2 clients from there, both of whom actually paid me more than $100,000 combined over the course of their entire lifetime. So until they churned, and they each actually referred one other person one of them is working with me even to this day now. And last but not least, I utilized cold outreach. So once I had a few client testimonials, I used cold emails, DMs, and phone calls, the same strategy as discussed previously for finding a job, to target slightly bigger companies near me. So this is the caveat. I didn't do across the state. I did companies near me, only about 30 to 60 minutes away, such that I could leverage the cold outreach to introduce myself, and then I went out of my way to actually meet them in person and build a relationship. So what's really unique about the business model that I built, my specific business, I pretty much to this day don't really run ads on it. Everything comes from organic referrals nowadays because I set up the relationship in such a way where everybody refers others, and I only need to work with maybe like maximum 20 to 30 people a month to hit that 7-figure mark that I'm hitting annually. And should I ever decide to expand, I can always do so. But right now, everything is just going pure organic. So I barely nowadays do any big sales calls, because all these referrals that are coming in from organic, they already heard everything they needed to hear from the person referring them. And we don't do any sales calls pretty much. So I don't even need a sales team anymore. But that's the very important thing here, is that your first paying client is going to be extremely important. And you need to make sure you always over deliver for them, because they will not only refer other clients to you, but they cut out a lot of the costs. So many of the marketing and sales costs, they cut them out because referred clients are the best to work with. So once you have your first paying client, you're gonna have a few options, right? You're probably gonna want to expand and grow your business, make more money, and this is when marketing 101 comes in. So this is extremely important. So I want you to pay attention to this section as well. After securing your first client and proving that your product or service works, it's time to start marketing effectively and branding yourself. Marketing is all about branding, okay? First, you need to understand your audience. So identify your target market, your ideal customer profile, your ICP, and know who they are. You can create customer personas with detailed profiles, which includes demographics, interests, and pain points. Next, you want to create a compelling message for your ICP. You need to clearly state the unique benefits of your product or service, focusing on outcomes. That's really important, rather than just describing what you do. You want to focus on outcomes, what you can do for that person. You want to alleviate the pain for them. You want to show them the outcome. And by combining logical and emotional messaging, you can ensure that your message is consistent across all marketing channels. And in order to do that, you need to create an online presence. So you need to have, first of all, a bare minimum professional, user-friendly website. You need to use social media like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter to engage with your audience if need be. And you need to constantly analyze and adapt your strategies. So track your KPIs, such as website traffic, conversion rates, and social media engagement, and use this data to refine your strategies and constantly improve results. The key thing here is building a brand is the most crucial aspect of this. You need to develop a strong brand identity with your clear logo, color scheme, tone of voice, how you carry yourself, what your brand is associated with, the professionalism, the quality of work done, and you need to maintain consistency in branding across all marketing channels and materials. And initially, I would recommend you avoid paid advertising until you are 100% confident that your offer actually works and is converting at a very decent rate. And that's pretty much all marketing is really about. It's about being resourceful. Effective marketing is all about being resourceful and branding. Now, one of the best ways, and this is not talked about often, and this is really the killer blueprint that I was talking about. This is what really carried me in the initial stages and got me to the point that I am today, is my conviction and mission. So I really truly believe in my offer that I offer for the businesses. Okay. And I make it my mission to ensure that my ideal customer profile, my ideal customers, my ICPs, they know about this. I always like to compare this to a doctor and a patient analogy. Imagine if a doctor reads the x-ray of a patient and sees that they have a tumor. That doctor will do everything in his or her power to actually inform and treat the patient. And you need to adopt the same exact mentality. You're the doctor here. When you see a business with a problem that you can solve, you need to make it your duty to let them know about your offer as if you're quote unquote saving their life. Okay. If you have this type of conviction in your offer, and I don't mean just lying. No, I literally mean you need to have the conviction. You need to know it works. You need to know that the offer has been tested with other clients. And if it works and is good for the business, you need to be that doctor and patient. You need to be the doctor for your actual patients. Okay. You need to let them know that, hey, I have this thing and I need you to know about it because guess what? I can be of help to you. Okay. When you have that type of conviction in any offering, it will make the other person, in this case your client, your customer, begin to naturally trust you because they understand that they themselves usually end up doing the same thing for their own customers, right? Especially if you're going to go down the B2B route. But nevertheless, it's extremely important for you to have the utmost conviction in any product or service that you provide. And this is why, as I'll get into it later, the most important part of your business is outside of the marketing and stuff, because no matter how good your product, if you suck at marketing, it's nobody's going to find you. But you need to make sure that your product is pristine, and you need to make sure that you truly have conviction in the offer and the solution you're offering. And once you start mass marketing, you'll be getting a lot more clients in, and you'll actually be able to sell it. Now, sales is one of the most important skills in life, okay? Because even for applying to jobs, you're technically selling yourself, you're selling what you can do for the company. And the good news is that the better your soft skills, the easier of a time you will have selling. And I can talk about sales for days and days because of just how vast the field of sales is, but I'll explain the basics. And this is what's extremely important, so pay attention. Sales is largely dependent on human psychology. You can have a product or a service that is a perfect solution for somebody's problem, but if they do not like you, they will not buy from you. They'll buy from somebody else. And most folks try to sell rationally, but as humans, we are not rational beings. We are far from being rational. That is why we need both emotional and and logical arguments and incentives whenever we are trying to sell something. So the first step of sales is understanding who we are actually selling to, okay? If somebody prefers a more logical argument with stats and proofs, then we need to accommodate that. If somebody prefers a more emotional argument, then we need to accommodate that. I would highly recommend doing a 50-50, having both emotional and a logical argument. But nevertheless, you need to understand who the person is you're trying to sell to for one reason and one reason only. And that is that will they genuinely benefit from what you are offering them? If they want benefit, don't try to sell it to them. Don't sell out. Don't go for short-term gains. I talked about this. Only think long-term. Don't go for short-term gains. Prioritize building trust and actually offering value, even if it means recommending somebody else's product or service if they will not genuinely benefit from your own product or service. With that, let's dive into product development. More specifically, making your product so good that it just makes your marketing and sales that much easier. Because while yes, without marketing and sales, doesn't matter how good your product is, it'll be extremely hard for you to make money. But the better your product, the easier of a time you will have marketing. So what you need to do is you need to always stress about improving your product, no matter how good you think it is. People always say don't fix what isn't broken, but you need to adopt a mindset of continuous improvement for your product. On a weekly basis, get feedback from your clients on what you can improve. And I cannot stress this point enough, guys. Similar to how you continuously improve yourself as a person, you need to do the same for your product. I myself, one of the biggest points of why I've been so successful within the consulting space, especially, is because I have meticulously always improved my product and offer. Every single week, I always talk with my clients and I ask, what can I be doing better? What do you not like about this? And any little small thing that they say, I try to make it better for the next time. So now we're at a point where my churn rate for the business has been in the past year less than 95%, right? So people aren't like they're not churning. The only people that are really churning at this point are those who the engagement is just naturally becoming over with and we can no longer be beneficial to them. And we just tell them straight up, look, it'll be pointless for you to spend more money on us because we're just, not going to be that beneficial. We just keep it honest with them. So that's what you need to do. You need to very largely focus on improving your product and making sure it's the best version it can be. Sure, you can start from an MVP, but nevertheless, always remember that your product, your core offer on what the business is built upon, the solution to somebody else's problem, you need to make that solution as good as possible every single day. And if you can do that, you'll be successful as a business owner. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave any specific comments if you have a question about something or if you need further explanation. Stay tuned for more videos coming up. And what I'll be doing is pretty much everything that I mentioned with regards to the Loom videos and some of the other documents. I'll have a Notion page where I have all the resources that you need to take a look at if you want to see things as an example. So if you want to get that, there'll be a link in the description you can click. But nevertheless, as always, thank you very much for watching and have a good one.